Chairs No Waiting, episode number 831, Andy and the Woman Speeder. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the fine folks over at Weaver's Department Store. They've been working hard and coming up with new things for you. They've got a brand new barbershop saving kit. They got a mug, a soap, and a lather brush, all sold separately, but you can buy them together and give yourself a shave. You can also check out the new Colonel Harvey's Indian Elixir t-shirt. That's right. It looks like the label from the bottle. While you're there, if you're feeling patriotic, pick up the exclusive Mayberry USA flag shirt. It's got Mayberry, the name, embedded in the flag. And if you go on the Mayberry cruise, check out the Cruise to Mayberry shirt as well. Head over to Weaver's Department Store and check it out. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners like you. The executive producer is a Patreon member for episode number 831 is Marty Davis. Thank you, Marty, for supporting me and the podcast, and thank you all for being here with me. Tonight we're going to be talking about the episode Andy and the Woman Speeder. Andy and the Woman Speeder. Now, it's the third episode of season 2. Okay, it was the 35th episode aired and filmed, so it correlates the filming and the airing. It was in the same order. The original air date was back on October 16th, 1961. The writers were Jack Ellison, Charles Stewart. The two of them did it, Jack Ellison and Charles Stewart. Director was Bob Sweeney. So last week, the podcast, we decided to do the trivia first and then do the episode description. So that is what we're going to do again this week, because I want to make sure I don't give away any of the answers at the beginning here, because during the show, I usually give out all the answers to the actual trivia. So we're going to go through the trivia. So get out your pencils and pieces of paper, and we're going to play trivia. All right. Trivia is our first thing up. Andy and the Woman Speeder is what it's all based on. Now, I'm taking this, once again, I did it last week, from the MeTV actually has a daily Andy Griffith Show quiz that they do. Now, this one was from last year in February of 2024. They did Andy and the Woman Speeder. So that's what we're going to be doing the questions on this week. So here we go. If you're ready, question number 1. I'm just going to go through the questions, and they are multiple choice, so you'll be able to see them or hear them if you're listening. And you come up with your answer, write them all down, and then at the end of the episode, we'll go over the actual answers. I'm not going to give the answers now, so we're going to run through these pretty quick. So pencil and paper, write down the answers for question number 1. Here we go. Andy wraps up a fishing trip with Opie, Barney, and who else in this episode? Andy wraps up a fishing trip with Opie, Barney, and was it Otis, Floyd, or Aunt B? Write down your answer. Question number 2. What's the speeder's name? Was it Elizabeth Crowley, Lena Lamont, or Margaret Williams? What's the speeder's name? Number 3. What does the woman speeder blame her speeding on? What does she blame the fact that she's speeding on? Did she blame it on the road, the car, or the weather? What did she blame it on? Number 4. So write down your answers. How much is the fine for doing 70 in a 45 mile an hour zone in Mayberry? How much is the fine? Is it $35, $5, or $10 if you're speeding? Number 5, which attorney was not mentioned as the speeder approaches her court date? Which one's not mentioned? Rafe Peterson, Charles Polk, or Lionel Hutz, or Hutz? I should say Hutz. Which one was not mentioned? Number 6. How does the jailed speeder try to get to Barney? How does she try to get to him? With flattery, with confusion, or with crocodile tears? Did she cry? All right, so write down your answer. Number 7, there's 10 questions. Number 7, she says Barney looks like who? She says Barney looks like Bing Crosby, Fred Astaire, or Frank Sinatra. Who does she say Barney looks like? All right, number 8. Where does the speeder get to defend herself? Where does she get to defend herself? Is it in appellate court, the mayor's court, or the circuit court? Where does she defend herself? All right, number 9. Who of the following is not a witness in the trial? Is it Aunt B, Barney, or Floyd? Was not a witness. And finally, number 10. What does the speeder give to Opie? What does she give to Opie? Does she give him a ball signed by the New York Yankees, a brand new baseball bat, or a box filled with baseball cards? All right. There you go. Those are our questions. Do you know the answers is the question, I guess. We'll go over those at the end of the episode, so stick around and I'll make sure you know what the actual answer was. So thank you to the VW boys for our music as they played us through our trivia. Now we're going to play just a little bit of music just as underground for this episode as well by the VW boys. Thank you, guys. All right, so we'll play a little banjo melody. All right, so this episode and any of these, if you'd like to go and check them out yourself, you can head over to the Mayberry Historical Society. That's at mayberry.info, and you can go to the episode guide, and you can find the episode, The Andy and the Woman Speeder. All this information is available there, written down, but we're going to go over it right here. So if you don't remember, I probably should have told you this before we started, but Andy arrests a beautiful big city woman named Elizabeth Crowley. There was an answer to one of our questions, see? By the time she reaches trial, though, Miss Crowley has flattered and bribed and turned every witness for the prosecution, which is Opie, Floyd, and Barney, against Andy. She turned them all against him. After winning the case, Miss Crowley sees the error of her ways and she speeds out of town intentionally. So Andy can arrest her again or give her another ticket and allow her to pay the fine that she deserved to pay in the first place. So that's what happens in this episode. So as more detailed version, let's get into that. At the beginning of the episode, we see Andy and Opie and Floyd walk into the back of the squad car to load their fishing supplies in there because they were having a fish fry that evening, and they were getting all their stuff together after they'd been fishing for 3.5 hours down there. And they were also with Barney, but he was slow to get there because while Floyd had caught some fish, Barney, he'd gone to his own special spot, and he was not really willing to show him what he had caught because he was bragging about his special fishing spot. Well, he didn't catch a fish. He caught a big old bullfrog. That's what he caught. So I'm sure that was going to be good at the fish fry. Well, as they started to get into their car, this car come flying by the squad car, throwing dust everywhere. And she must have been going 70 is what they said. So they jumped in the squad car, chased her down the road, and eventually they were get her to pull over. Just as a little trivia for you that I don't think's mentioned later, when she finally starts to pull over, if you listen, her tires squeal on a dirt road. Okay, so listen for that. It's not one of the odd facts known by few tonight, but it is an odd fact that it happens on the Dukes of Hazzard too. They spin out of a dirt road, and there's a squealing tire sound. So listen for that. It could have just been the brakes squeaking. It could have been. Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions. Anyway, they pulled her over and get out. Andy and Barney get out to go up and to write her a ticket for speeding. And she basically, she tells them she's from Washington, D.C., and she's a writer and all this magazine and stuff she works for. And she's basically starts trying to use what I would say are her wily ways as a lady to get, big eyes and sweet talking and everything to try to talk her way out of the ticket. Well, Andy is immune. So he says, no, ma'am, I'm sorry. And she says, well, this says I have to be back in a week. And basically, she wants to go to see the Justice of the Peace. So, you got one in this town? And he goes, yes, ma'am, we do. And the next scene, they show basically Andy sitting behind the desk, flipping the sign around from sheriff to Justice of the Peace. And of course, she's like, you are the sheriff and the Justice of the Peace. How am I supposed to get a fair trial? So you got quite a racket here, she starts saying, and he's like, ooh, you're accusing me of something, like in that regard, because he'd only charged her, I think, $10 for the speeding. But then she starts saying they're running a racket. Don't you just want to see how much money I've got in my purse so that you can figure out how much I'm supposed to pay? And he's like, oh, that's contempt. And that's another $10. Boom. And of course it is, she says. And then, he throws another. He basically ends up in the end, she owes $60 from the 2 contempt charges, the speeding, and then a $30 fine for road dignity, whatever he called that, for going against the dignity of his robes. And so she says, well, I won't pay it. I'm not going to pay it. So even after Andy says, well, maybe we had a misunderstanding, he offers to say, okay, $25, and she still won't pay it. So he just basically gives her the money back and tells Barney to lock her up. And she had asked to appear in mayor's court, which would be the next day instead of before the Justice of the Peace. So basically Andy has got this woman locked up, and he tells in the episode that to have a woman locked up in the jail cell, you have to have a matron. Well, Andy and Barney come back to the jail because they have gotten, I guess, Aunt B to be the matron to take care of the jail cell with the lady in it. And when they come back to the courthouse, they can't get in the door, and they're knocking on the door, and Aunt B says, we're not decent. They come walking in, and there's clothes hanging all in front of the jail cell. The lady's in her robe, I guess it is, and she's working on her hair with her. And Aunt B gives Barney a list of things to go get nail polish and all this kind of stuff. And Barney's like, well, we don't do this. So Andy again goes and talks to her, and she says, well, maybe there was just a misunderstanding. If we just act like adults, maybe we can get through this. And Andy says, well, I'm glad you're finally coming around. He walks back over there, and she gives him the $10. He says, well, wait just a minute now. It was $25 is what we had agreed to. And she says, well, I thought you were going to be big about it. He said, I thought you were going to be the adult. So she basically just goes back into the jail cell because she's mad, and Andy's mad too. They're both upset about this. So Barney comes back with the package. He gives her the package. And of course, she starts using her wily ways on him and talking about, oh, well, sheriff. And he goes, oh, no, I'm not the sheriff. She said, you mean that other man is? Then she keeps telling Barney about how strong he is because he breaks the string that's holding the package together that he brought in for her. And then she starts saying that, has anybody ever told you you look like Frank Sinatra? Which is, again, one of our trivia answers. There you go. And he says, no, nobody's ever told me that, but I'd noticed it. So she's pumping him up and getting him going, and to the point where she's using cologne and she sprays it at him so that the smell wafts towards Barney, and he gets taken in completely. And as he walks away from the jail cell, he starts singing like Frank Sinatra and pops his hat, just tips it forward a little bit with the brim of his hat comes down over his eyes a little as he sings, and he walks away. Well, it cuts to the next scene, and Aunt B is in the jail cell helping Miss Crowley fix her hair. Well, and Floyd comes in. And she starts to talk to Floyd, and he says, well, I can't talk to you. I can't talk to you because I'm testifying against you. She said, well, I didn't want to talk to you about that. I just wanted to know if you would comb out my hair. I don't comb out ladies' hair. I'm a man doctor, barber. I mean, but she says, oh, but look at your hands. They're the hands of an artist. And so, of course, Floyd, he looks really close at his hands because he has not noticed that he is an artist. So he starts to brush out her hair, and she brags again on how good he's doing. Well, then the next day finally arrives, and they're in the mayor's court. And so she is acting as her own lawyer, calls Floyd to the witness stand. And, of course, she starts patting her hair and everything because Floyd's the one that combed it out, right? So she started patting it, so Floyd's like... And basically she asked Floyd what he saw when they sped by. When she sped by, and he says, well, I couldn't really see anything because these glasses have really been bothering me. I can't see anything. And he, Barney's sitting on one end of the spectators and Aunt B's all the way at the other end. And he looks at Barney and goes, isn't that right, Aunt B? And Barney goes, she's down there. So Andy is like, come on, Floyd. So basically, he says he can't see. So they all right, you're dismissed. Get out of there. So then they bring Barney up. Andy says, can I talk to him first? And so he starts asking Barney what he saw. And Barney's very not very willing to answer the questions. He says, don't you think we're making a big deal out of this? Look, Andy, did you or did you not see her speeding? Well, Andy, we were standing still, and it's hard to tell how fast the car going. You and I have talked about that before. He says, how fast was she going when we overtook her? And he goes, well, basically he comes off the stand, and Andy's very upset. And so he calls Opie. And Opie comes walking up to sit in the witness chair, and he's carrying a baseball. And he goes, well, what's that? Oh, Miss Crowley gave it to me. Isn't it nice, Pa? It's signed by the New York Yankees. And so Andy just says, all right. Basically, he gives up. And Miss Crowley is ruled as not guilty because there are no witnesses against him. And basically, he walks up to her and says, well, yeah, it was a fine day's work. You turned 3 people against me that I never thought would leave my side. I'm disappointed in Floyd. I'm very disappointed in Barney. I understand how a little boy could be swayed by baseball, but I'm very disappointed. And he basically walks off and leaves her there to think about what she had done. And it cuts to a scene where Barney has helped her load the car, and she's trying to be nice to Barney. Barney's just, would you just go? Would you just leave? The sheriff's pretty upset. Yeah, he's got every right to be. And she says, well, I'm sorry. I hate that I caused these problems. He said, would you just go? Just get going. And Andy comes out, and he's walking to get into the squad car, and she spills out of there, guns the car. They chase her down, pull her over, and they walk up to the car, and she admits that she was speeding. She knows it, and Andy kind of realizes what she is doing because he says, well, I know the justice of the peace, and I'm pretty sure I know what the fine would be. So $10 is the fine for speeding. And she gives him the $10, and then she gives him another $25, and he says, no, it's just $10. She said, well, I would really feel better about myself if you took this too, because she knew she was guilty. And he tells her, to tell you the truth, I feel better about you too. And he invites her to come back to Mayberry anytime she'd like, just a little slower next time. And she proceeds to drive away. And Barney and Andy head back to the squad car, and all's good in Mayberry once again. And the next scene is Barney is in the courthouse sweeping up, and he tips his hat forward once again and begins to sing a Frank Sinatra song. And he goes, I know it. I think I know what that song is. And he gets up and walks out, and Barney's just mad looking at Andy because he wanted him to say that he looked like Frank Sinatra. So that is it, guys. Hopefully that is a little bit of a rundown of the episode. That is what happened in this episode. And now we're going to do some odd facts known by few. Okay, so in this episode, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Barney and Andy and Floyd and Opie had all been out fishing. Well, Floyd actually mentions exactly what he had caught. He caught 3 trout and 2 perch while he was fishing. And of course, Barney again, caught a frog. He caught a big old bullfrog, by the way. It was a big one. Oh, and was very upset that they figured it out. Okay, so again, Elizabeth Crowley, the speeder, said that Barney reminded her of Frank Sinatra. That's what she uses. That's odd fact. You know it now because we talked about it earlier. And Barney imitates Frank Sinatra in that scene as he's walking away from the jail cell, as I mentioned. He imitates him by singing the song what's it called? One for My Baby. One for My Baby. That's what he starts to sing as he's walking away from the cell after she's told him that he looks like Frank Sinatra. Now, this entire episode, the storyline is very similar to the pilot episode of the Andy Griffith Show that was aired on the Danny Thomas Show, season 7 of Danny Meets Andy. It was the name of the episode. It's one of the very few episodes where Andy is stubborn about doing things by the book, more so than Barney. So Andy actually, he didn't let this lady off the hook just because she was, pretty and batting her eyes. This is the only episode of the series that one of the mayors, of course, in this case, it was Mayor Pike, but one of the mayors held mayor's court. This was the only episode where they served as a judge or held mayor's court. I don't think this ever happened with Mayor Stoner. I don't remember him ever doing it. And Mayor Pike did it on this episode. Andy tells in this episode that he has to have a matron for the lady. So Aunt Bee serves as the matron. But that doesn't happen in other episodes, right? This is the only time that this actually happens. Female prisoners have to have a matron, but it doesn't happen when they do the episode a few years later, A Prisoner of Love, where the lady was in there that was really attractive that Barney and Andy both liked. The paintings in the jail cell with Mrs. Crowley. Let's see if I can get a good shot of one. Here we go. So the paintings in the jail cell that Aunt Bee had hung up in there with Mrs. Crowley were various dancers. They're dancers and stuff that are in there. It is a thing. It's by an artist named Edgar Degas. Degas, probably. Degas. The Degas picture that she's hanging there in this jail cell, the larger of the 2 ballerinas that you can see in the foreground, is the same one that the Baxters had in their living room in seasons 1 through 4 of the television sitcom in the 60s called Hazel. So if you watch Hazel, you'll see this same picture used as a prop in that show. So there you go. Okay, so the map behind the desk of Andy, you can see behind it. They have the maps that are on the wall there are of North Carolina, but right below that map, there's another map below and behind it, and it looks like it could be Tennessee, but it's definitely another map, and probably it looks like it'd be Tennessee mainly because it's long and not very tall. So that's probably a Tennessee map, but it may not be. It's really hard to distinguish. I didn't try to pull out the Blu-rays to try to see if I could see better in the Blu-ray what that map is, but it does have a North Carolina map on the wall. Let's see, toward the end of the episode, when Mrs. Crowley is sped away and everything, when she's sped away and Andy is walking up to the car, you can see in some shots there is a mirror And in other shots, there's not a rear view mirror in that car. And it depends on which angle they're shooting the shot from. So watch for that and see if you can see it, because it's definitely there in some shots, and then in others it is not. Mainly you would see it when she first pulls up and they pull her over, I think would probably be the best time you would actually see the rearview mirror, and then it disappears. So watch for that in the episode as you're watching it, and you'll be able to spot that. Let's see here. The actress, Jean Hagen, who plays Mrs. Crowley, she was actually a shoo-in, at least everybody thought she was, to win Best Supporting Actress for Academy Award for her hilarious performance as Lena Lamont in a 1952 movie called let's see, the Bad. Oh no, she was in Singing in the Rain. So that was the movie she was in. So she was guaranteed to win, but was beaten out by Gloria Graham for the movie Bad and the Beautiful. Though nominated twice for an Emmy for Danny Thomas's first wife on the comedy series of Danny Thomas or Make Room for Daddy, Jean became disenchanted after about the third season and basically left the role, and Marjorie Lord replaced her as Danny Thomas's second wife for the remaining series. So the first 3 years it was called Make Room for Daddy, and then after that it was called The Danny Thomas Show. So there you go. So when people get those confused, because it's the same show with two different names. Just one last thing for your information, Jean Hagen, the Elizabeth Crowley, she is not related to Earl Hagen, who was the music director and whistler of the theme of the Andy Griffith Show. Earl Hagen, she is not related to him in any way, just so you know. All right, so here's the actual quote that I gave you earlier. Andy says, "Well, that's a fine day's work. You've outsmarted justice, and you've made a mockery of this court, and you've turned 3 people against me that I would have sworn would never leave my side. Oh, I can understand a shiny autographed baseball turning a little boy's head, but I'm a little disappointed in Floyd, and I'm real disappointed in my deputy. He's a law officer and ought to know better. Congratulations, ma'am. Been quite a day's work." And he walked off. So I thought that was a really good quote from this episode, and it really got to her. So anyway, so those are odd facts known by a few and the rest of the story there. So, all right, guys, well, let's go back to our trivia. If you guys are ready for your answers, pull out your piece of paper and let's go back through them. I'm going to give you the answers. So the answers are, here we go. Andy wraps up a fishing trip with Opie, Barney, and who else? Well, we know it's Floyd, right? Because we talked about it. What's the woman speeder's name? It's Elizabeth Crowley. Okay, so how did you do? Did you get them from before? Who or what did she blame the speeding on? I didn't mention that. So what did she blame speeding on? Did y'all know that? The answer, was it the road, the car, or the weather? The answer, she actually blamed it on the car. She blamed it on the car because cars nowadays got so much power. You just press the button and it goes, press the pedal. How much was the fine for doing 70 in a 45-mile-an-hour zone in Mayberry? How much was the fine? It was $10. $10 is what it was. Which attorney was not mentioned as the speeder approaches her court date? Was it Rafe Peterson, Clarence Polk, or Lionel Hutz? Or Hutz? Hutz. It's Lionel Hutz is the answer. How does the jailed speeder try to get to Barney? Well, we already know that one, right? She flattered him. Said he looked like Frank Sinatra. Yeah, and he was strong and all that kind of stuff. Number 7, she says Barney looks like, I just said it, Frank Sinatra. Oops. I clicked the wrong one, but it's Frank Sinatra. You can see it right there. If you're looking at the screen, I clicked the wrong one, but you got it. Where does the speeder get to defend herself? What kind of court did she go to? Was it appellate, mayor's, or circuit? Well, it was the mayor's court, right? We know that because I talked about it. Who of the following is not a witness? Who wasn't a witness? Was it Aunt B, Barney, or Floyd? Well, Aunt B, she didn't see it. Barney and Floyd did, though, and Opie. And finally, what does the speeder give to Opie? Well, we've said that so many times. You should surely know it by now. The answer is a ball signed by the New York Yankees. So there you go, guys. That is the trivia, the rundown, and the odd facts known by a few for this episode. How did you do on the trivia? Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun? That's the main thing, right? I kind of like doing the trivia like this because that way I don't have to worry about giving it away. Our folks in our chat room are saying they got 10 out of 10. I'm seeing some of that. Let's see what our folks on the other chats are saying. But they did pretty good. Folks did pretty good on this. So good job. Congratulations to all. And I hope you did well too. If you'd like to join us in our chat rooms, you can join us on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time. If you go to live.twochairsnowaiting.com, you can get right there to it and join us in there. And folks, we would love to have you. Thanks so much for being here. I would love to hear from you. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415. You can email me at floyd@imayberry.com, or you just drive over to twochairsnowaiting.com. There's all kinds of information there. If you can't get to twochairsnowaiting.com, because I'm still having some issues with some people, most people it's working, head over to imayberry.com/podcast, and you can find all the information about our podcast right there. Folks, thanks again for being here with me, and thanks for all the support you give me over the years, and I really appreciate it. And until next time, have a great Mayberry week, and we'll see you here on Two Chairs. Good night, everybody.